Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is the Piracy Show. Now, on this week's show, we're going to talk about the Anvil Crucible. Now, the Anvil Crucible has been announced as coming out this weekend for sale in the anniversary sale. $350 gets you this ship. It's a repair vessel, it's also a space tug, and it also has a little docking bay in it, so you can dock at least one Anvil Hornet size ship or Gladiator size ship within it to repair it. Or you can extend a scaffold and repair sections of a much larger vessel with this ship. That's some of the things that have been discussed about it already. And to that end, it seems like, if you want to go out there and do the repair and rescue thing, tugging, using it as a space tug, you can do that with it. So, to what use is it to a pirate fleet? Well, once again, it kind of highlights that gap of an affordable carrier in the Star Citizen lineup. For people who can't, say, go to the point of an Idris in terms of, spending, whether it be $5,000 at any time or $2,500 or $1,000 should the Idris come back up again for either the Armada pack or the ship itself. So, people have once again, kind of theory crafted this ship as as a very limited carrier, much like the Endeavor is in some people's minds, to allow you to project fighters into deep space, or to use fighters in an area where you may not be able to land at a space station or on a planet because the cops will be waiting for you when you land. So people are kind of talking about it in that respect. Now, I suppose it's possible that it could fill that role. It's a docking bay that can be used for repair, and if you also have a Starfarer there that you can use for refuel, then you can do that. I can't see how that would not be available, and given, the price tag of the ship, I would assume it's going to be a fairly sizable ship with, probably very extensive facilities aboard it. I can't wait to see it and see what it looks like. So, I guess it could be used in that role, and once again in tandem with the Starfarer, used to maintain fighters out in deep space or areas where you may not be able to land for legal reasons, or just because maybe you're operating behind Vanduul lines and you just can't land on a Vanduul planet and say, hey, just stop them for gas, thanks. And in that respect, it seems like maybe it could fulfill that role, but at $350 is a lot for a repair ship. To me it seems. If you can use it as some kind of like a mini poor man's carrier, then I suppose, $350 wouldn't be that bad, but it does kind of highlight once again that gap in the Star Citizen ship lineup of an affordable carrier that anyone can buy. And it's one of those things where people have theory crafted the 890 jump into a carrier. People have theory crafted the Endeavor into a carrier, and people are obviously theory crafting this as a carrier. All these ships, they've been looked at as a possible poor man's carrier, and I suppose it's possible that it can be used in that fashion, but on the one hand, it's time to start considering that we need a poor man's carrier in the game. And obviously, when people are talking about the Panther Light carrier that's been already, is being made apparently for Squadron 42, we need something that's affordable in the average Joe's range, something in between the $400 to $600 or $900 range. Something that doesn't have to stack a whole bunch of weapons on it, and that maybe just could be more or less nothing more than a flying platform that has repair and refuel facilities on it, with a small bunk and maybe a command and control that relies on the fighters it launches to defend it, and maybe has enough room to dock 5 fighters on it. Maybe we need to get another version of the Idris C, that is just absolutely stripped out with nothing but a hangar bay and basic weapons to defend itself. that more or less has sacrificed all that space for nothing but fuel and weapons for the ship it maintains, or ammunition rather. But for the Crucible itself, to get back on the subject, I mean, as a repair vessel, with able to extend a scaffold, repair much larger vessels, certainly much larger combat vessels out in deep space. I mean, it sounds like a fairly promising ship. The $350 though, I'm sure it's something that has really kind of stuck out for a lot of people, and they're like, because I don't know. I mean, when I imagine it in my head, I'm imagining something roughly the size of like a Redeemer, with just like kind of like a landing bay in its belly, that not so much as a landing platform, but something that a ship can sort of like float up into or be pulled into with like a little gantry arm or something like that, that you can repair the ship in there, possibly seal it off, and work without work in the benefit of an atmosphere and in gravity. But something like that, I wasn't picturing it as like a whole hangar bay in the thing. So who knows how the ship is going to turn out, but it does definitely highlight that concern in the community once again of not having an affordable carrier. So I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. But I mean, if you're trying to maintain a mobile kind of vagabond fleet behind enemy lines, or just in an area where your ships may not be able to land, I suppose it could be used to that end. We'll find out more come Thursday, but I don't know. Maybe it's time to start talking about an affordable carrier again, because this is just it's the subject that just won't go away. It's the elephant in the room whenever you talk about all these like small fighters, Hornets, Gladiators, and and on and on and on. People always say, like, how am I going to get the ship into deep space? People look at the Gladius and they see, short range in the description. They're like, okay, well, how do I get the Gladius out into deep space? How do I get the Hornet out into deep space? Once it makes that one jump or whatnot, it gets the next system over. How do I get it even further? I mean, when you look at the Vanguard has been described as a long-range fighter with the ability to jump to the next system over it. I mean, if that's considered long-range, what happens if you want to take your Hornet further than that, or you want to take your little fighter squadron or fighter wing that you've got in your org further than that? What are you going to use to project that power further if you can't afford an Idris? And so, some people are theory crafting this into that and paired up with a Starfarer. One provides refuel, one provides repair and rearm. Maybe it's time to talk about taking an existing ship and stripping it down and turning it into just a purpose-built carrier. Not asking for an entirely new ship, but at least something with a proper hangar bay on it that can support 5 or 6 fighters, that doesn't have to have capital class weaponry on it or all this stuff. Something that would be dependent on the ships that it maintains to defend it. But I mean, clearly that's a gap in the Star Citizen ship lineup, and I know I'm not the only person out there who sees it. And so if we address that issue, maybe we can start talking about the Crucible as a repair ship and not the Crucible as a carrier. Anyways, when the Crucible finally does come out, we'll see what we're going to get, and it'll be a lot easier to kind of make a judgment call on the price for the ship. But there is that elephant in the room, and there is that subject that's lingering that still has not been dealt with. So I guess we'll have to wait until Thursday to wait and see, but I can see it being useful in that respect. I can see it being worthwhile, and right now it's the worst part of the waiting game. It's the last few days before we actually do find out. Anyways, that's my thoughts on the subject, and hopefully we'll know more by Thursday, and thanks for watching.